Hello everyone, welcome to AWS Tutorials. In AWS Tutorials, you will learn about AWS services. Today we are going to talk about how you can do streaming data ingestion into Amazon Redshift. This is a new feature in Redshift and it is in public preview at this point of time. And so let's learn about it and hopefully it's going to be useful for you. So let's get started. So what exactly we want actually here? Or if you can define the problem statement, all we are saying is that if there is some producer or set of producers who are streaming data into a Kinesis data stream, we want to have a real-time data ingestion to Amazon Redshift. That's our requirement. So we want a real-time integration between Kinesis data stream and Amazon Redshift so that at the moment any producer streams data or writes data into Kinesis data stream, the data gets a real-time ingested into Amazon Redshift. So that's a problem statement we want to solve using this feature. What has been solution so far? So there was one solution available, and let's try to understand what was the solution. And solution was pretty straightforward. You ingest your data to Kinesis data stream. Then we used to create a delivery system using Amazon Kinesis data firehose, which can have Amazon Redshift as a destination location. So the moment the data comes to Kinesis data stream, it was batched, and batching was done either based on a time or based on certain size. And once that batch size is reached, that data is then delivered to Kinesis data firehose. Kinesis data fire will simply write that data to the destination, and one of the destination could be Amazon Redshift. So this solution was in place. Only thing, it was a batch-based solution. It was not a real-time or near real-time solution. But it works, yeah. Internally, the way it used to work is that actually Amazon Kinesis data firehose will write data to S3 bucket, and then it will trigger copy command to Redshift to copy this data from S3. So Kinesis data firehose was not writing data directly to Amazon Redshift, but it was writing data to you can say a temporary S3 location, and from that temporary S3 location, data was copied to Amazon Redshift using the copy command. And that's why this is not a real-time integration, because data does not go to Redshift directly, but it goes to S3 and comes via that. And it was more of a, you can say, a batch processed, but yeah, it was a working solution. Nothing wrong in this solution. But what we want to achieve here is direct integration between Kinesis data stream and Redshift. And it could be in the scenario where you want your real-time streaming data to be ingested into Amazon Redshift for certain analytics purposes. So the way this solution works at very high level is that if you want to integrate your or ingest your data from Kinesis data stream to Amazon Redshift, actually what you do in Redshift is that you create an external schema for Kinesis. So you can create an external schema for the Kinesis, and then you can create a materialized view using the Kinesis data stream to see data inside Kinesis data stream. And I'm going to explain these steps in more detail. In fact, I have a demo towards the end, which will make it happen in front of you, so you will realize how exactly it works. But try to understand at very high level at this point of time that you create an external schema in Amazon Redshift, which represents, which like talks to Kinesis, which represents Kinesis data inside Redshift, and then you create materialized view, which can then fetch data from data stream. So materialized view, you can say is the landing area within Redshift where the Kinesis data stream data comes or gets ingested. So what are the steps required? How exactly it works? What you need to configure to make this whole configuration work? And to be honest, it's pretty simple and straightforward, and it works like a charm. The first step is you create a Kinesis data stream, which is, there's no magic here. The way you have been keep creating Kinesis data stream, you create Kinesis data stream in the same way. The second step is you create an ImRole for Redshift, and this ImRole for Redshift should have permission to list Kinesis data stream and should have permission to read data from Kinesis data stream. Not all data streams, the data stream which you want to ingest data into Redshift. So on the whole, this ImRole provides Redshift permission to talk to Kinesis data stream. Then you create then you launch a Redshift cluster associated with ImRole. Not that you have to launch a new cluster. If you already have a cluster in place, then you can simply associate this ImRole to that cluster and you're good to go. The step number 3 is done. Then you create an external schema for Kinesis, which is just like creating external schema for data catalog or S3 bucket. It's the same syntax. You create an external schema for Kinesis using SQL statement, one-time job. And then after that, you create a materialized view which can read data from the Kinesis data stream. So external schema you create for the Kinesis service, and then in the step number 5, you create a materialized view which maps to one of the Kinesis data streams to read data from there. And as I said earlier, materialized view is like a landing place within Redshift for your Kinesis data stream. So let's try to understand these steps in little more detail. Again, Kinesis data stream, very simple, no magic here. Keep creating Kinesis data stream like you have been creating earlier. So no change here. What is the ImRole? How does the ImRole for Redshift look like? This ImRole should have the following permission. So you can see here, first of all, it should have the list stream permission. That means it can list the streams and list the shards. So this should be across all the resources. And then it can read the stream, and you can see it can read the records, get the iterators, describe the stream summary, and describe the stream. Here, the resource is star. That means all resources. But here you can make security more tight by simply mentioning only the Kinesis data stream you want to read from. So right now this is a generic role definition I'm showing it over here, but in the read stream part you can actually mention the specific Kinesis data stream in your resources section to make sure your Redshift can read data from the Kinesis data stream you mention over here. But this is how the role look like. Then you simply launch a Redshift cluster, nothing new and magical over here. You launch a Amazon Redshift cluster associated with this ImRole. And as I said earlier, if you have this Redshift cluster already up and running, you simply need to create the role and associate that role over here with the Redshift cluster. And by virtue of that, Redshift cluster now has permission to talk to Kinesis data stream. Next, we create external schema for Kinesis. And here's the syntax for that. It's similar to how you create external schema for S3 or external schema for data catalog. So you can say simply create external schema, my schema name from Kinesis, and then you provide this ImRole for the way to authorize Redshift cluster to, or which ImRole to use to create the external schema. Okay, so you simply provide, this is how syntax look like. And if you want to see example, this is how example look like. Create external schema. Here's my my schema name from Kinesis ImRole, and here is the ARN of the ImRole which we created earlier. And then this this schema represents Kinesis. Then you create materialized view, and this is, in my opinion, the most important step which completes the whole process. Materialized view is the landing place in Redshift where your Kinesis data stream data lands. So here is how the syntax look like. So you can see here, you create a materialized view, your view name as, and then before I go to the fields over here, look at over here, from external schema name. So the external schema name we created in the earlier step, and then you mention the Kinesis data stream name. So Kinesis data stream here, like working inside like a table within your schema. So Kinesis data stream is like a table within your schema, and so you simply read data from the stream using this from syntax over here. Now look at the fields we can choose. So there are few fields you can, like, of course, if you're talking about like your data which is coming, that is a payload, and that is like it comes from the field data. So data is the field from which you can read the data, and here we are simply doing the JSON parsing of the data, and we are simply creating creating this field as a payload. Again, you can give some other name, but I use the syntax which AWS provided. And then you can choose some other fields, and like for instance, this is the time when the data arrived, this is the partition key, shard ID, sequence number. Now I put all the fields over here, but it doesn't mean that if you're creating a materialized view, you have to bring all the fields. In my opinion, I think payload and this timestamp is more than enough for you, because if you use Kinesis data stream, then you are most probably dealing with the time series data. Then I think having a timestamp makes sense here. And of course, you want payload or the data. Other fields, if you want, you can ignore, but I wanted to show you the art of possibilities. So just for your information, timestamp, partition key, shard ID, sequence number, all these fields you can also bring to your materialized view along with the actual data, which is the most important thing for you. Now, if I take two examples from what AWS documentations provide, this is how the example look like. As you can see over here, it is creating a materialized view. This is name of the view, from this is the schema, this is the actual data stream, actual Kinesis data stream name, and then you can see the same syntax, timestamp, key, your ID, shard ID, sequence number, and then your actual payload. Now here, keep this in mind, within the payload column, your data is a JSON document. Yeah, so your data is a JSON document within the payload column. So you need to handle this JSON data document within the payload. And you can do that. In fact, I have a very good video which I have published some time back about how you can handle a JSON data within Redshift. So you can create a view like this where your data is like a JSON document within one column. That's one way of doing it. And in that case, you need to JSON parsing of data. And again, I told you that it is a nice video which in fact, I'm going to provide you a link of that video in the description box below. And you can simply refer that video if you want to understand how you can parse JSON data within Redshift. But there is another way you can create the view where you can do parsing when you're creating the materialized view. So everything remains the same, but you can see here what we are doing here is that you can actually parse your data right here, and that way, instead of having one payload column where your document is your data is like a one big JSON document, actually you can actually do the parsing of the data, and you can see here it's using UTF-8 encoding. This is the key within the JSON document, and then this is how we are, like, for instance, defining the data type, and then you can see here this is how we are defining the field name. So pretty straightforward syntax here. We are simply parsing the JSON document with the key, data type, and then finally we are giving that each of them a column name. And if you do that, then you have multiple columns, each holding a value of a particular key in the JSON document. So up to you how you want to create the materialized view. Both possibilities are there. That's what pretty much from the like knowing point of view. Now this is what we are going to do for the demo. So I've created a SageMaker notebook to simply write some code which can stream data into Kinesis data stream. And this is the JSON document I'm streaming in. It has some, like, I'm kind of mimicking kind of a IoT environment where I'm publishing my IoT device vibration, temperature, and pressure. And then this, I'm going to do a real-time ingestion into Amazon Redshift. So let's do this demo to see how this feature works. So here we go. So we are in AWS Management Console. First step, we need to create a Kinesis data stream. So let's go to data streams and say I want to create a data stream. I will give this data stream a good name. So I'll call it Dozo data stream. Make sure there is no space here. Fair enough. I can go for on demand here, but let's go for a provisioned, only one shard. And yeah, I'm simply creating a data stream. So it will take a couple of minute or seconds, and it should finish the creation of the data stream. Let it finish while we go to the ImRole creation. So now we are going to create an ImRole, which is then going to be used by my Redshift cluster. So let's create in my IAM management console, click on creating the ImRole. And I am creating this ImRole for Redshift. This is the new interface. If you are using an old interface of AWS console, then it will look a little different, but the configuration remains the same. So I simply select Redshift customizable, click on next. I don't want to give any permissions here. I will give it later. I'll create an inline permission and I'll give this role a nice name. I will simply call it Dojo Redshift Kinesis role. So this role I'm creating for Redshift, and let's simply create the role. Okay. So role should be created in no time. So role is getting created. Role is now created. Let me open the role in case I need to copy paste the ARN here from here. Let's go back to data stream. So my role is created. Well, I have to give permission, by the way. I don't forgot that part. So let's add a permission. So I could have created a custom policy and then give permission here, but for the demo purpose, I'm simply creating an inline policy. But yeah, if you want, you can create a custom policy and then simply attach that policy over here. So in my inline policy, I'm simply doing a copy paste of the JSON document. So here we go. This is how the JSON look like. What I'm going to do, I'm going to provide this JSON document and those things probably either link in the description box below, and you can simply use it. So I will provide this syntaxes, whatever I'm using in the description box below through a link, and you can, if you want to play it by yourself, you can use that link to use the script, use the code, use the JSON document, and do a test at your end. It's the same JSON document I shared you earlier. Yeah, as I told you, I can make the security more tight by mentioning a particular data stream over here, but I'm keeping it for now open. And let's review the policy, and then this one I have to give a name, and I can simply say this is Redshift Kinesis access policy. Create the policy. So what it has done, it has now created an ImRole, which has got an inline policy to give permission to access Kinesis data stream. Let's go back to Kinesis data stream. It looks active, so I'm happy. So let's go to Redshift now. So step number 3. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to create a new cluster on the and let me close this side here so it got more space. So I will not change the cluster name here. Let's use production, but I want to go down to say DC2 large. Then I choose one node here to minimize my cost. Then let's give it a password. and then I come down here and I want to associate the ImRole. This is important. If I don't do this, my Redshift cluster will not have permission to talk to Kinesis data stream. So Dojo Redshift Kinesis role, I associate the ImRole, and rest I keep as default. So pretty straightforward. My Redshift cluster name, I choose DC2 large, one node only. And as guys, as I mentioned earlier, whenever I do this kind of demo, right after a demo, I delete the cluster, so I incur hardly any cost. Then you associate the ImRole, which is very important, and then I keep my network configuration default, which is basically launching it into default VPC. And I create the cluster. So now my cluster creation will start. And we will wait for this cluster to be ready. So it is under creation. So let me show you a couple of more things while it is getting created. So what I have done is the Amazon SageMaker notebook. Actually, what I have done is I have created a simple script, and through this script I'm going to ingest my data into Kinesis data stream. So my code is pretty straightforward. I'm simply creating a Kinesis client, and then I'm simply looping for 6 times, and then I'm generating some random vibration, temperature, and pressure values through these variables v, t, p, and p. I'm creating my JSON document as the data to be ingested inside inside the data stream. Then I generate a random partition key, and then I simply, it's not so important right now, to be very honest, because I have just one shard. And then after that, I put my records, put my record. So this data I simply put into my Dojo data stream. So pretty straightforward. This is the code I'm going to run to ingest my data into Kinesis data stream, and then I'm expecting that my Redshift cluster should pick this data from Kinesis data stream when I query it using the materialized view. So that's pretty much what I want. Now, let me go back to Redshift cluster again, and let's see if it has got the cluster ready. Okay, still creating. So let's wait and we proceed to the next step when the cluster is. Okay, so my cluster is ready now. So I'm good to go. So what was my fourth step? The fourth step was, the next step or the fourth step was creating external schema for Kinesis, and that we can do from query editor. So I'm going to use query editor version 2, which I can say again, I like it. So let's open this query editor. This was something I was playing earlier, so I can remove this. I connect to my cluster. And you can see in this cluster I have got this dev database, which has got only one schema, public, and to be honest, there's nothing under that public schema because it's a brand new cluster with no data into it. So we are all good. So first thing first, we are going to create an external schema for this Kinesis. For that, I simply use my syntax I showed you earlier. So I'm simply creating external schema. This is my schema name from Kinesis, and this is the ImRole. So this is the ARN of the ImRole. So this ImRole which we created, I simply use the ARN. Let me copy paste one more time to make sure that I'm not doing any mistake here. Okay, and I do that. So this I'm going to run, which is going to create external schema, which basically represents, you can say, data coming out of Kinesis data streams. So simply run it. And this has been successful. You can see here, this has been successful. And if I refresh my cluster, I should see now this schema. So if I refresh it, you can see I have got this schema, and it is an external schema. So we are good. Now what we need to do is that we need to create a materialized view which works like a landing place for your Kinesis data stream. So I simply remove this syntax and put the next syntax, which is saying create materialized view. This is my view name. And then for the sake of demo, I'm fetching all this timestamps and partition key, shard ID, everything. Then I'm simply parsing my data from using JSON parser and bringing that under the payload column. And then I'm simply saying that read it from stream data schema, the stream data schema, and this is my data stream name. So basically this materialized view now becomes a landing place for this data landing place for this stream. Okay, so this Kinesis data stream. So simply run this particular script and it will create a view for you. So now my view is successfully created. If I try to query data from here, actually I should not be able to see any data because right now there is no data in materialized view. And you see it is blank. By the way, there is one recommendation, and that recommendation is, well, not recommendation, that's mandatory. Sorry for putting recommendation. Before you view your view, you should refresh the view, because when you run the refresh materialized view, then it fetches data from the Kinesis data stream. So I can probably run this syntaxes one more time. And you can see I run both, and yeah, my refresh happened, and then in 2 I can see a blank. So okay, fair enough. So you always refresh and then select, and when you do refresh, then it reads data from Kinesis data stream. Now there are 2 approaches you can take. One approach is that whenever you want to read from this materialized view, which actually representing data from Kinesis data stream, you can simply refresh and then call like I'm doing here. Or you can schedule this refresh materialized query in Redshift so that your materialized view is getting refreshed every time at certain frequency, I mean, right? So now time to see the code in data ingestion. So now I go to my code over here, which I showed you earlier, and through this code I am going to simply ingest 6 record into my Kinesis data stream. So if I run it, hopefully I see a success message. Ingestion is done, so I'm happy. Now what I do is that I come back here and then I run this code again, and hopefully this time I see my data. So if I run it, you can see my materialized view refresh happened, and if I go to the second one, you can see the 5 records. Basically 1 to 6 means 5 record, not 6 record. Yeah, so 5 records are ingested. So that was example how you can ingest data into Kinesis data stream, and when you query that through the materialized view in Redshift, it shows a real-time data ingestion from Kinesis data stream to give you the to show you the result. So that was all for today's video, and hope you like this video. And if you like, please click on the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. I always look forward to your feedback and comments, whether it's about a new topic or whether you want to correct me for something, or if you want to discuss something about AWS in terms of like architecture or design. Feel free to write your comments. I am more than happy to respond to your comment. In fact, I like doing that. So I look forward to your feedback for improvements. In the meantime, yeah, I promise to come back again next week with another video. In the meantime, stay safe and have a nice day. Bye-bye.